So welcome one and all to Jenny's Commerce Land. This is Business Studies, Chapter 5, Organizing. In our previous chapter, we saw about planning, and today we are going to see about organizing. So do not forget to subscribe my channel by clicking on the bell icon that you see on the screen. So moving forward, we saw that management is an important function, and under that there are various functions that we need to follow. So first one we saw was the planning. So we have planned and we have found out a solution to make our business run in a successful way. Now it is time for us to organize it. That means we have to arrange the things in a systematic way. Okay, so before we were just deciding how this thing can be systematic, and now in real we are arranging the resources to make the business systematic. So our chapter 5 is organizing. Now coming to the meaning of organizing. Identifying and grouping different activities in the organization and bringing together the physical, financial, and the human resources to establish most productive relationships for the achievement of the specific goal of the organization. So we can define organizing as identifying and grouping different activities so that they make a proper relation. That is, it can be physical, it can be financial, it can be human resources. Okay, so suppose there are various departments. So planning department, so planning प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंट. सो इन प्रोडक्शन जो भी लोग आते हैं उन्हें सब हम इकट्ठा करके एक ग्रुप बना लिया. नेक्स्ट जो भी सेल्स में आते हैं उन्हें एक ग्रुप कर दिया. वैसे हम लोग अलग अलग ग्रुपिंग करके क्या होता है, at the end ultimate work leads to the achievement of the goal of the organization. Okay, so according to Henry Fayol, what does he say? To organize a business is to provide it with everything useful to its functioning: raw materials, machines and tools, capital and personnel. So he says that to organize a business is to provide everything that is useful for the functioning of the various departments of the business. So now moving forward, we'll see the process. Okay, how can this process of organization be done? We saw that it's identifying and grouping, but how can we identify and how can we group? So first step is identification and division of the work. Okay, so now the total work to be done should be divided into specific jobs. So now our task is to produce so and so amount of goods in the month of January. Okay, so but how can we do that in the month of January? So for that we have to divide the work specific. That is, production ये department का है, sales ये department है, marketing ये department है, raw material ये department लाएंगे, right? ऐसे अलग अलग काम अलग अलग लोगों को देख के हम एक प्लान बनाएंगे पहले, एंड उसके हिसाब से ये जॉब्स बांटेंगे, एंड accordingly what will happen, the whole task will be achieved in bits and bits, and the small bits together will become a big one. So the total number of work should be divided into specific jobs as according to predetermined plans. Then job, what is this job? The job is a set of related tasks that can be performed by an individual. It should be specific, it should be definite. As far as possible, it should define the expected results as well. So abhi raw material koi manga raha hai, so there is a department, raw material procurement department, and the department is purchasing the things. So what should that department do? Okay, you have to get so and so amount of raw materials required for the प्रोडक्शन. सो डेफिनेट एंड स्पेसिफिक होना चाहिए, एंड क्या रिजल्ट होना चाहिए, ऐसे टाइप का होना चाहिए, इससे ऐसे काम करना है, जो भी ये सब कुछ एकदम स्पेसिफिकली उन्हें बता देना चाहिए. नेक्स्ट इज डिवीजन ऑफ वर्क. स्पेशलाइजेशन ऑफ एफर्ट्स एंड स्किल्स प्लस अवॉइड्स डुप्लीकेशन ऑफ वर्क. So there are certain people who are specialized in some work, and such skills and effort should be noticed, and then only we have to give the work, otherwise there will be duplication of work. Suppose अभी सेल्स का एक बंदा है एंड उसे मैंने बोल दिया कि आपसे तुम सेल्स मार्केटिंग मत करो, तुम प्रोडक्शन कर लो. तो उसे मशीनरी की नॉलेज नहीं है, उसे कुछ कैसे काम चलता है उसे नहीं मालूम है, and without any training or anything, without identifying his skill, I'm just giving him blindly the work of production. तो क्या होगा, गलत प्रोडक्ट्स आएंगे या फिर मशीन खराब हो सकता है, वैसे डुप्लीकेशन ऑफ वर्क्स होता है. So we need to identify the specialization of efforts and skills. Next is management must ensure that all activities required to achieve organizational objectives are identified. So there are activities that are required to achieve some organizational objectives, and we have to identify such activities so that the management functions in a smooth way. So first we have to identify and divide the work. Second, we have to departmentalization. So what is department? We have to divide into several departments, as I mentioned, production department, sales department, marketing department, finance department, research department. ऐसे अलग अलग departments में करके ही हमें बहुत बड़ा काम जल्दी से करना possible होगा. So grouping similar and related works into large units are called departments, divisions or sections, and placing them under a department head, it facilitates specialization. So यहाँ पे एक चीज होता है, कोऑर्डिनेशन होना चाहिए एंड यूनिटी होना चाहिए, तब जाके ये डिपार्टमेंटलाइजेशन हमारा बेनिफिट हो जाएगा. एंड इन दिस वे वी कैन ऑर्गेनाइज द मैनेजमेंट. नाउ once we have divided, we have identified and divided, then we have departmentalized the work, and now we have to assign the duties. So according to each department, the work and each job position, the work must be divided among the individuals. So over here, qualifications, experience, ability and aptitude of the people should be matched with the duties. Okay, so for example, activities of finance should be assigned to a person having qualification and experience in finance. So he can be a CA, he can be a MBA. So such degree should be there, and they must have the required qualification and experience until and unless the work cannot be done in a proper manner. So while assigning the duties, we have to take a note of these factors. Now, after that, what should we do? Establishing reporting relationships. So over here, the superior subordinate relations between different people and job positions created, so that everyone knows that whom is to take orders and to whom he can issue orders. So a relationship reporting should be there. So each subordinate must know his hierarchy must be known to all the employees, and one should know to whom he should make the orders and whom he can issue the orders. Simply we cannot tell to anyone to do such work, or uh, just issue any order, or just cannot fire on them. So everyone should know the relationship, who is the superior and who is the subordinate. So they must have a healthy relationship. Now creates a management hierarchy, that is a chain of command from top manager to the individual at the lowest level. So a chain of command is there from the top manager to the person at the lowest level. So this helps in coordination as well. So therefore, we should grant authority in order to make the work get done satisfactorily, and it should not be just bombarding on anyone. So a healthy relation should be there. Next one, we'll see the importance. Okay, so now there is benefits of specialization. Okay, we can take the benefits of specialization when we organize the task. Then there is a clarity in the working relationships. Okay, that does a previous point, the superior subordinate relationships clearly defined. Next, there will be an effective administration. Okay, and there is clarity in the working relationships, there is a proper execution of work, and it will result in uh, effective administration. If there is no clarity, then what will happen? It will only help in creating confusion and duplication, and it will ultimately lead to ineffective administration. Now the fourth one, we need to make the optimal utilization of resources. So when the person is knowledgeable and he has the ability, then only he can avoid the wastage. So the skill and the effort of a particular employee should be taken care of. Next, the adoption to change. So when a person is assigned with some different tasks from his regular work, he must be ready for such changes. That can be technological changes, right? There can be product changes, that can be resource changes, market changes. So he should be flexible. So this is one of the important thing that we must notice when this organizing process is taking place. Next, the development of a personnel. So uh, when the manager delegates their authority, it reduces their workload, right? So the organization encourages initiative and relative thinking on part of the employees while dividing such works. And when such works is delegated, the workload gets lessened, and this can lead to growth and innovation, and ultimately the growth of the employee. Next, expansion and growth. It helps in growth and diversification of an enterprise by adding more job positions, departments, product lines, new geographical territories, etc. So when the workload is been divided, as we saw, there is growth and innovation, right? So this leads to expansion of the organization. So that is the helpfulness of the organizing. Now, there is two terms that is important in this chapter. One is span of management and organization structure. So when we say span of management, that is the number of subordinates that can be effectively managed by a superior. So there is a superior, that is a manager, and under him he can manage 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. So that is the span of management. The span of management to a large extent gives the shape to organization structure, and this ultimately results in creating an organizational structure, and this determines the levels of management in the structure, right? So now the arrow, that is the span of management, results to all structure where wider span of management results in a flat structure. So there is a wider span of management that will result in the flat structure, and arrow management span of management that will result in a tall structure. So this is the relation between span of management and the organization. So how many people a manager can manage creates determines a span, and this ultimately leads to creation of the organizational structure. Now, what is this organizational structure? When the organization has a particular structure, that is the relations among people are working on different posts are determined, the structure provides a basic or the framework of manager and other employers. So what functions they are doing. So this creates the organizational structure. The organizational structure can be defined as a framework within which the managerial and the operating tasks are performed. Okay, so that is what is meant by the structure. So in simple words, it is a structure of the organization. Now, there is a functional structure. So, such structures are determined on the basis of the functions that are performed by the employees, and divisional structures, and that is on the basis of various divisions. So, that can be major products that are manufactured. Suppose it's a clothing company. So, it can be the raw material, that is the clothes that are required for the, then there is a tailoring department, then there is a stitching departments, designing department, and different divisions. So on the basis of division, when the organization is structured, then it is divisional organization structure, and on the basis of function, that is a production department, sales department, etc. So it is this functional structure. Next is the formal structure. So what is this formal structure? It specifies the boundaries of the authority and responsibility, and there is a systematic coordination among various activities to achieve organizational goals. So Lewis Allen. So there is a person, Louis Allen, and he has defined this as the system of well-defined jobs, each bearing a definite measure of authority, responsibility, and accountability. So he mentions this as a system of well-defined jobs. So that is the formal organizational structure, and this refers to the organizational structure that is designed by the management to accomplish organizational objectives. Now, informal, which is not established deliberately, purposefully, but this comes out of the common interest, taste, and religion and communal relationship. The purpose of this organization structure is to get psychological satisfaction. Suppose the employees with a similar interest, that can be interest in religion, films, or sports, etc., they form their own informal groups. So हम लोग जहाँ पे भी जाते हैं तो वहाँ पे अलग अलग groups होते हैं, right? So the people we like, we get take them into our groups, and such is an informal organization. Now, the difference between the informal and the formal, that is mainly the meaning, the nature, the authority, the adherence, the flow of communication. So on these basis, there is a difference between this formal and informal organization. So one is structured, one is not well structured, one is flexible, one is rigid, one is there can be a virtues of positions in the management that arises, and one is out of personal qualities. So there's other difference. So you can just go through this slide. Okay, and in one place the communication is on a scalar chain, and in another, that is the informal, then we communicate according to our wishes, right? So these are the differences. Now, delegation. So, delegation is the granting of authority to the subordinates to operate within the prescribed limits. So, a manager is there, he has a task. The sales manager got the task of achieving 20 rupees 20,000 sales in this month, right? So, he is working towards that, and what happens? He delegates his work to other subordinates, and they have their own limits, and within that limits they perform the task. So now we'll see that is nothing but the delegation of authority. Okay, so under a manager there is a team leader or a supervisor who will lead the other employees, right? So in this way the authority is being delegated or distributed within different persons in a team, and that is known as the delegation of authorities. Now there is a process or elements of delegation. So there is an authority, that is a power of taking decisions. Then there is responsibility, that is an obligation towards of a subordinate towards his superior. And now accountability. So when a superior assigns some work to this subordinate, he is also answerable to the superior, right? Whether it is a success or a failure, he has that he must be able to answer for that. So that is accountability. So these is the process or the elements of delegation. So there are three elements that are involved in delegation. One is authority, that is a superior person who provides or who is taking decisions and gives orders. And the other one, that is the subordinate who is obliged to his superior. And then the superior, while assigning the jobs, he has the authority to ask the subordinate about the job, and the subordinate is must be answerable whether it is a failure or success to the superior. Now, the principle of absoluteness of accountability. The authority can be delegated, but responsibility or accountability cannot be delegated by a manager. The manager cannot escape from the responsibility for any default or mistake on part of his subordinate. For example, if the chief executive asks the marketing manager to achieve a sales target of sales of 100 units per day, the marketing manager delegates his task to deputy sales manager who fails to achieve the target. Then the marketing manager will be answerable for the work performance of his subordinate. So nobody cannot delegate between their responsibility and accountability. So this accountability is always the person of the person who delegates the authority. So whenever accountability is coming, it is always of the person who delegates the authority. As we saw in the example, the chief executive is asking the marketing manager for the poor performance. So the marketing manager will answer on behalf of his subordinates. Now, it is a difference between authority, responsibility, and accountability. So you can just go through the basis, the meaning, origin, flow, and withdrawal. Next, the importance. Why it is required to delegate the authority? First of all, it reduces the executive's workload. That is a manager. He has a target and he is dividing it among his subordinates and his workload is being decreased. Next, it helps in employee development, right? So to utilize their talent, what should be there, or to develop their skills, there should be a delegation of authority, and that's how we grow or climb the ladder. So for employee development. Next, for quick and better decision making, right? So we need the delegation of authority. Then the high morale. So when a person who is performing well, he's a senior and he's given the post of the team leader, he feels confident and motivated that he is raised to some bigger post, and he out of the motivation can perform better. Then for the better coordination, so the elements of delegation we saw, that is the authority, responsibility, and accountability, helps to define powers, duties, and answer, right? And this will help in maintaining effective coordination. Now, decentralization. So what is decentralization? It means dispersal of authority to take decision through the organization to the lower level. So decentralization refers to systematic efforts to delegate the lowest level all authority except the one which can be exercised at the central points. So this is said by according to Ellen. So what happens when this empowers the lower level? It's to decisions regarding problems faced by them without having to go to the upper level. So when this decentralization is there, the problems at the lower level without coming to the top level can be solved at their own levels. So it implies to the reservation of some authority with the top level management and transferring the rest of the authority to the lower level of organization. So that is known as decentralization. So centralization means the authority is retained always at the top level, whereas in decentralization there is a systematic delegation of authority at all levels and in departments of a firm. So this is the difference between the centralization and decentralization. So again, these are two important points from this chapter. Now we saw the meaning, the importance, why we need this, because it develops initiative amongst the subordinates. So when the subordinate is given some authority, he feels motivated and he takes an initiative to achieve the target. Then again, it helps in better and quick decision making. When the authority is delegated, the manager is not getting any idea. Suppose the team leader can help him out, or somebody who is assigned with the authority can help in taking better decisions. Now, relieves the top executives from excess workload. So the workload can be relieved. Okay, so this can be exercised when there is a decentralization. Next, managerial development. So it can give authority to the subordinates up to the lower level to take decisions regarding their work. In this way, the opportunity to take the decisions helps in development of the organization. So there is a managerial development that would happen. Then a better control. So at every level, there is a control as the authority is being delegated, right? So these are the importance of decentralization. Now, there is a difference between delegation and decentralization. When it comes to delegation, it is a compulsory act, but when it comes to decentralization, it is an optional. So we can always keep the authority at the top level, or we can distribute it among the levels of management. That is up to us. Now, the freedom of action. In delegation, there is less freedom, but in decentralization, there is more freedom due to less control by the top management. Now, the status, it is a process of sharing task and authority, that is delegation. But In decentralization, it is a result of policy decisions taken by the top management. Now, coming to the scope, the delegation scope is very narrow, whereas the decentralization scope is very wide. Now, purpose. It reduces the burden of the manager. It increases the role and autonomy of the lower level management. So when it comes to decentralization, the lower level management's role is widened, whereas in delegation, the burden of the manager is uh, decreased. So this is all for this chapter, that is chapter number 5. Thank you for patience listening, and yes, do not forget to subscribe our channel, and yes, all the best for the exam preparations. Do post your doubts to me so that we can work together and help each other. So yes, all the best. See you again with a new video.